Interpol, self-titled.
Well, hello, my needle drops. Anthony Fantano here, the internet's busiest music nerd. I gotta do an album review. Drink time. Refreshing cold water. It's one of the few things I like more than music. Let's look at a comment. The Shimi says, chirp, 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 chirp. Whatever could he be talking about? Interpol's fourth LP is their triumphant return to Matador Records after being on Capitol for a short stint of one album. And if you put your ears on this thing, sound-wise, Interpol really isn't throwing too much at you that they haven't before. In some ways, it's pretty much what you've come to expect from the band. Of course, that very eerie, hollow sound, bleak, hollow atmosphere is on this LP too, the sound that's been kind of following them since their first release, the critically acclaimed Turn on the Bright Lights. And I guess another depressing thing is that this LP kind of follows suit with the trend that has been happening on Interpol's music in terms of Carlos Dengler's bass lines just getting turned lower and lower and lower into the mix. Here, they're kind of quieter than ever. But still, they're pursuing that moody rock sound that is influenced by bands like, of course, Joy Division. And I love that about Interpol. I'm glad that they're still working with that aesthetic. It works for them. It's earned them the fan base that they have thus far and made their music the treat that it has been for the past 4 albums. The biggest change you'll find on this LP is how the band is structuring their songs this time around, which is exemplified by a track like, let's say, Lights. The band is really pursuing a lot of building and a lot of repetition in their music on this LP. Instead of changing up sounds when the verse comes or the chorus comes, they switch in between a bridge or something like that. The whole song just kind of builds instrumentation and builds instrumentation. This is kind of shown up in the form of lots of horns, strings, piano, tremolo pick guitars, lots of reverb too. I wouldn't say Interpol has gone orchestral or shoegaze or drone or anything like that, but I would say that they're sounding a lot less like a rock band. There's not really any raw energy or power to this LP for me. It's all safe and a little dreary too. There are a few spots on this LP though where it feels kind of like, ooh, the old school Interpol, kind of like on the track Barricade. Great dance beat, good hook, and Paul Banks' vocals for me are a little off, but still very emotive. However, a lot of the extra sounds, a lot of the experiments on this LP don't exactly go over all that well. You've got these sequenced electronics with the track Try It On, a very drony and theatrical atmosphere with all of the waves, and the album closes with The Undoing, which features singing in a different language, I don't know which one, I'm not a linguist, and some vocal samples too, which were kind of disorienting. It's almost as if most of the time the band is like, oh, let's do this weird sound, let's throw in this weird repetition, let's just try this new thing, which isn't necessarily bad. Trying new things. However, I'm just kind of sitting here thinking, man, I just kind of want you to write a good song. And that's where my number one gripe and kind of my verdict for this album comes in. Repetition. Like I mentioned earlier, a lot of repetition on this LP with the building of the tracks. And repetition, not necessarily a bad thing, but in this instance, it's, for me, very underwhelming. Oh, I'm sure a lot of people have been, but I can't say I'm really all that angry or offended by this album. It's not disgustingly awful. I think hardcore Interpol fans may even enjoy this, probably even more than Paul Banks' solo album that he came out with last year. So if you're digging it, all the more power to you. I have nothing against you. But when listening to this, maybe for the exception of 2 or 3 tracks, I am so bored by the lack of contrast in most of the hooks and just the monotony of these songs. So really, I'm feeling a decent to strong on this one. Yeah. But if you disagree, let me know in the comments. And what would you score this LP? And why? What were you loving about it and what were you hating about it? This is Anthony Fantano, Interpol, self-titled, Forever.